It's also going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow, because a lot of times on the eve of these big announcements, we start to get this real volatility around whether they will or will not happen and what the White House does or doesn't say about it. So I don't know if we're waiting for more clarity even tomorrow on what we could hear.
Yeah, the markets want clarity. They like to have a complete transparency. And when there's uncertainty, it's really hard to think long term and create long term policy. It's why consumer confidence has been soft. It's why CEO confidence has been soft. It's really hard to project and predict what you're going to look like a year from now if you don't even know what the total industrial policy decisions are going to be here in the U.S., how business policy, taxes, all of those things are up in the air. So it's really hard to plan. So until we have more certainty and more transparency, the markets are going to be volatile. And tomorrow could be a good sign, but something tells me it's not going to be as much information as we want. Just if you think about how this administration communicates, it's a little all over the place. They say one thing and then the next day they're like, no, that's not what I meant. So I think for a while we're going to have this kind of uncertainty. But long term, if you look at where stocks are today and longer term trends, if you look beyond just the short term uncertainty, there are attractive buying opportunities that are happening right now in a lot of really attractive spaces.
Yeah, and I think you like NVIDIA, Leidos, AutoZone, Nike. I mean, these are all very, very different companies.
Yeah. So I don't have AutoZone. I have AstraZeneca. So
AstraZeneca. There we go. AZN. AZO is AutoZone. I retire immediately.
Yes. So you look at NVIDIA, that's a stock that long term, the trends are very favorable. You know, whether short term companies aren't putting CapEx into AI, if spending's going down, long term, the fact is that what NVIDIA produces is required for a trend that is not going away, which is AI. Now, how much spending happens in the short term is to be determined, but longer term, the fact of the matter is it's needed. If you look at Leidos, a lot of uncertainty about defense spending, how DOGE is going to affect government contracts, things of that nature. But Leidos is the leading provider of security, cybersecurity, and security like at the airport. That is not going away. The TSA is not going away. DOGE is not going to affect that. It's not going to affect those contracts. So again, short-term uncertainty, giving us a good buying opportunity. And we have been complaining for the longest time for some of these tech stocks that they were too overvalued, too much of a premium. They're way ahead of their skis. And now we're complaining that they're cheaper. And I think that we need to make a decision. If you like the longer-term trends, which I do, buying at opportunities and valuations like we see today is favorable if you're a long-term investor.
Let's wrap it with this, because I know tariffs are getting all the headlines, as they probably should. They affect the broader swath of the population. You came on shows such as this one at the end of January, and you talked about how tech valuations were, not in every case, but certainly near the peaks. With all due respect to the information, they do great work. We talked about this last week. TD Cowen talked about it last week, that spending may be tapering off or coming down a little bit. Is that the main reason that markets are down, or is it really the tariffs? Because the stocks that are selling off don't seem to have any relationship to tariffs whatsoever.
Well, I wouldn't say it's quite that simple. If you look at an NVIDIA, if there's tariffs on semiconductors, that hits them. And if you think about the really nice situation of being an NVIDIA or an Apple or somebody who has really wonderful profit margins, the problem is tariffs increase costs. And if you've got really fat profit margins, they're going to hit them. The companies will still be fine. I'm not worried about Apple. I'm not worried about NVIDIA. But yeah, tariffs hit all sorts of companies. But the other thing that, that you've been saying and we think is really important here is not just the tariffs, but the uncertainty. And I don't think the uncertainty goes away anytime soon. It's harder to manage a business under uncertainty. It's harder to make investment decisions. We're going to see less investment in the U.S. because of the ongoing uncertainty. That's not great for companies that are driven by investment demand.